You've likely heard the statement, don't believe everything you think. Have you wondered, what does that really mean? Do I really believe everything that I think? And if so, how do I not believe everything that I think? Or even just maybe recognizing that your thoughts tend to get in the way of maybe a lot of different aspects of your life. If so, today's video is for you. Welcome, I'm Peggy Oliveira. Thank you for joining me. That statement, I don't know where it originated. It's been around for a long time, and it's pretty simplistic, but quite powerful, really, because without even being aware, we believe the things that we think. In particular, we believe the things that we think over and over again. We believe the thoughts that are associated with the core beliefs that we hold. And you've likely heard me talk about core beliefs before, but core beliefs are the beliefs that are so deeply ingrained and so automatic that we're often completely unaware of them, and certainly unaware of the impact that they have and how they show up, or how that impact shows up in our daily lives. For people that have experienced childhood trauma in any capacity, and even children that wouldn't necessarily identify, or even if you wouldn't necessarily identify as a child that you experienced trauma, but recognize that maybe things were kind of difficult or challenging. Maybe there was a lot of poverty or dysfunction, or maybe you lived in an area or in a home that was unsafe. Maybe you witnessed domestic violence. Maybe you had a parent that was challenged in some way, whether it was something significant like a mental illness or addiction, or maybe just not able to really show up for you in the way that you needed as a young child. So there's lots of ways that we are affected in a negative way. And no matter what our childhood is like, we develop core beliefs based on our experiences, starting from very early on, from the very beginning, through teenage-ish years. And it kind of can vary a little bit just based on your circumstances, the people around you, different kinds of things. But our core beliefs are pretty identifiable, pretty solid by the time we're certainly by about 10 years old. And for people that have experienced difficulty in childhood, those beliefs tend to be beliefs that are false, but tend to be around not being good enough, not being worthy, not being deserving, being responsible of bad things happening to ourselves and even to other people, a sense of responsibility for how the people around us feel or behave, a sense of responsibility for making sure that everything is okay with ourselves and around us. So there are a lot of different things that we can build a belief around. And I say that they're false beliefs because they're not based in truth. The things that we end up believing about who we are, like not being enough, being unworthy, being deserving of the bad things that happened, but not deserving of good things, those are absolutely false beliefs that are created. And our core set of beliefs are what tend to drive the thoughts that we're constantly having, our automatic thoughts that very often we're not even aware that we are having. So, and I've talked about this before in a variety of ways. But these thoughts, these automatic thoughts, show up whether we're consciously aware of those thoughts or not. They dictate how we show up. They drive and dictate our fears. Even to a degree, the things that we go after, well, to a large degree, the things that we go after, and even to a degree, what we allow ourselves to desire. So it really is quite profound. So that idea of don't believe everything you think is powerful, because it is really important to recognize, to just have that seed planted, that maybe I don't need to believe everything that I think. So there's kind of understanding how this happens, why it's happening. And then there's, what do you do about it? And I have talked before too about what do you do about it. So I'm going to try not to make this too long. So if there's anything that I talk about that you want me to get more into, or things that you'd like me to expand on or anything like that, definitely let me know in the comments. So for beliefs around like not being good enough in some way, not being worthy. And when we think about not being worthy, we're not typically consciously aware, especially if you've not really done any healing before. You're not typically aware that you're sitting around thinking, I'm unworthy, I'm unworthy, I'm unworthy. So it can be hard to feel like you really relate to that sometimes. What you might be thinking is, like if something bad happens, you might be thinking, well, that's what I get for whatever. Or, of course, it didn't work out, right? So there's different ways that you may specifically be speaking to yourself that don't sound like I am unworthy of this because, but it's connected to that belief of being unworthy or whatever that core belief might be. And we tend to have a couple, maybe even a few core beliefs, and all the other ideas that we hold and thoughts that we have about ourselves are related to those core beliefs. So like if you say to yourself, well, of course that happened because I didn't pay attention, or of course that happened because I'm not good enough, or whatever you might be saying to yourself, that's reinforcing that core belief. And I've said this before many times, when you're unaware that you're having that thought, that reaction, it has more impact because you don't have the ability to challenge it. When it's just automatically happening and there's this really vicious cycle that happens, every time you have that thought, every time you're reinforcing that thought by attaching something good or bad happening or not happening to who you are, it's reinforcing that. You're finding evidence to prove that what you believe is actually true. There are things that you experience in your life that actually you could take as proof or evidence that what you believe may not be true. But because of the way that our minds work, we're not able to really capture the thing that would counter what we believe. And an aspect of that is cognitive dissonance. We don't allow ourselves to take in things, and this is not a conscious choice. We don't allow ourselves to take in things that counter what we already believe. And this is true about any belief that we hold, any idea that we hold that's a strong idea of something. And I think religion is kind of a really good example of this, because with religion, we can look for evidence or proof of something that we believe, and we can say, this is it. But objectively, somebody else could look at that same thing and find an alternative explanation for it, right? But we believe it because of what we already believe. Just like when we believe that we're undeserving and we don't get the promotion, it's because I'm undeserving of that promotion. Potentially, I'm unworthy of that promotion. Potentially, not only am I not good enough, but I'm not smart enough for that promotion. So again, what you're saying to yourself specifically is going to vary. And it can even vary depending on the specific circumstance. But again, you're likely going to have themes that show up over and over again. When in reality, you may not have gotten that promotion because maybe in a couple of months, your boss knows that there's going to be another position opening up that is going to be a much better fit for you that you actually might enjoy even more. Or maybe in not getting that promotion, you start educating yourself more in whatever way. That it could just be reading more on the topic or doing more training on something. And then you end up getting a different promotion that is better for you. So when you take that as evidence, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not worthy enough, whatever it is, when you take that as evidence, not only do you feel bad, but it's reinforcing that you're not worthy. And that belief is ingrained deeper and deeper and deeper over time. So the idea of being able to change our beliefs, again, seems like it could be simple. Well, just don't believe what you think and start thinking other things. The problem is that those thoughts, especially the automatic thoughts, the ones that we may not be aware of, the ones that just happen like that, because we're not aware of them, because we don't have the capacity yet to stop them, we don't have the practice built in yet to stop them, they're going to keep showing up. So we can't just change what we think. It's not willpower. It's not strength. It's not determination. It's not some magical ability. None of us can just change what we are thinking, especially the automatic thoughts. And you've probably tried it, right? With an affirmation or something like that, like, I am worthy. Well, if everything inside of you is thinking, I'm unworthy and I need to believe in my worthiness, so I'm going to do this affirmation and tell myself that I'm worthy, your belief, your core belief that dictates everything, when you say to yourself, I am worthy, that immediate resistance is going to come up because it doesn't seem true. It seems like a lie. And that seems dangerous to our survival. It seems risky to our safety, emotional, and potentially even physical. So changing what we believe is how we change our thoughts. Now, there are things that you can do that can change your thoughts in a specific moment when you're present with it. And that has a large piece of what you need to be able to do to ultimately change your core belief. And this is part of the reason that healing, real, deep, true healing, takes the time that it does. And I know there are so many things out there, so many people out there coming up with three simple things you can do to change your beliefs, or 5 behaviors to believe in your worthiness, or different kinds of things like that. And while there might be some value in the specific things that they're talking about, even if there are 20 simple things that you can do, it's not just a matter of checking them off of a list every day. There's healing that needs to happen for you to be able to believe, even begin to believe in those things. And if you don't believe in them, that resistance comes up, pushing them further and further away because you're holding on tighter to the false beliefs. So, when you're thinking about this, or when you're hearing people talk about this, I really want you to try to, or what I would encourage you to do, and I want you to do this because I know that it's part of how you get to where you want to be, and I want you to be able to feel the freedom and the ease within yourself that you ultimately desire. So yes, I want you to do this, but I also encourage you to do this when it feels right for you. To notice the types of thoughts that you tend to have over and over again. And this is based on cognitive behavioral work. And I know that there's a lot of people out there talking right now about how cognitive behavioral is not good, and especially not for trauma. And as somebody who has worked with trauma survivors for a very long time and was a licensed practicing therapist for quite a long time, working with survivors specifically, cognitive behavioral on its own is not going to get you where you want to be. It is not going to heal you, so to speak. But not using cognitive behavioral is also not going to get you to where you want to be. And that I can really feel like I can guarantee, because it is our thoughts. It is our thoughts based on our beliefs, and our beliefs are what continue the struggle that we have in our lives. Kind of no matter what that struggle is, if we have not healed, it is the beliefs ultimately that are creating that struggle, whether it's anxiety, whether it's not wanting to be on this planet any longer, whether it is relationship struggles, boundaries, like you name it. Those core beliefs are the underlying factor contributing to all of that. Now, of course, there may be some other things going on in your life that are contributing to it, but without those core beliefs changing, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to continue to struggle. You may feel better for a while, but you're going to continue to struggle because it's those beliefs that just have you believe everything that you believe about yourself and what you're capable of, and that relationships can be safe. Because that part of that core belief and part of that pain and wounds, the wounds that you've experienced, that has reinforced some of those beliefs. And so relationships then feel unsafe. And even when you tell yourself, well, I feel like I can trust this person, if at your core you believe that you're unworthy of having good people in your life, you're not really going to be able to trust that person. Now, obviously, there's a lot more, yes, there is a lot more that goes into changing core beliefs to healing. And I've talked about all of it many times. But I wanted to do this video today to serve maybe as a reminder, and also just kind of maybe another message, because you're likely hearing lots of messages out there. Maybe another message to hear that there really is no simple or easy or quick way to just start thinking and believing something different. It isn't about your willpower. It isn't about your determination. It's not about your strength, and it absolutely is not about your worthiness of thinking and feeling differently. Remember that your core beliefs are at the core, the foundation, the underlying thing that causes you to believe what you believe, to ultimately think what you think, and to feel what you feel when you're in that place of feeling unworthy, feeling like you're never going to be able to achieve the things that you want to achieve, whether that's healing or the relationship that you want, or whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship, or the career that you want, or even just being able to show up in the world the way that you want. your beliefs hold you back from trusting in that. And typically then from doing the things that you need to be able to do to make it happen, to being willing to take the risk to make it happen. So changing what you believe is a lengthy process. Going back to the idea of religion, and I've talked about this before, but in case you haven't heard me talk about this before, if you think about somebody who is very religious, and whether you are or not, I think we kind of all have an idea of the impact of religion and how people believe what they believe. And this is not a judgment about religion or anything like that. But it's just kind of the thing that I think most closely resembles the depth of belief that people can have even when there's no objective evidence of what we believe to be true. So if you think about somebody who is very deep into their religion, if you try to get them to believe something different than what they've always believed, because it's what they usually start as a child learning, right? So they just kind of always believe this. If you try to get them to change what they believe, particularly like believe in something very different from what they believe, so not just no longer fully buying into that, but actually believing something that is the opposite of that, it's going to be really hard, right? And in fact, some people might say it's impossible. And that's part of the reason why I often will refer to the idea of changing core beliefs, or healing generally, but it's related to the core beliefs, is that it is very much a process of like deprogramming. Because those beliefs are so ingrained, they're so automatic, and they come from things that are not based in the reality. Doesn't mean that you didn't experience the things that made you believe it. It means that the meaning that you've attached to the experiences is not the true meaning. So for example, being abused as a child, the meaning that you attach to that is that it's my fault. I'm bad. I'm unworthy. I'm undeserving. I don't deserve good things, whatever that is, right? So that's the meaning that you attach to it. To release those ideas, those beliefs, so that you can put responsibility where it goes and not blame yourself any longer, so that you can believe in your worthiness, you have to undo these core beliefs so that you create space for the new beliefs, the truth, ultimately. So like going back to the idea of religion, you can't just keep telling somebody that something different is true, right? Because they're not going to believe that. Because what they believe is so deeply ingrained. They have to first be able to open to the possibility, sound familiar? To that what they've always believed, that maybe it's not the entire truth, that maybe there is a possibility that something else could be true. So if you think about the process of actually going through that and getting to a place where not only are you open to possibility, but you can see that, yes, I can see evidence now that this could be true. I see evidence that this is the reality and this is true. And then to actually let go of this, that's another part of the process. Because in this process, even when you're over here and can recognize, yeah, I can see some evidence of that, in that vulnerable place, whatever might be creating that vulnerability, you're going to naturally, because it's so deeply ingrained, so practiced over time, potentially decades, in that vulnerable state, your automatic response is going to be to go back to these beliefs. So in regards to healing, if you're opening to the possibility that maybe you are deserving of good things, if you're feeling particularly vulnerable, for whatever reason, and something not so great happens, your automatic inclination is going to be to go back to reinforcing these old false core beliefs. Once you've done some healing, you can kind of work your way through that and get to this again more quickly. But when we're in that vulnerable place, because those beliefs were so deeply ingrained, it can be automatic to go back there. The more practiced you are at doing this new thing, the more automatic that becomes. And eventually, with enough practice, and part of that practice is also finding yourself back here, working through it and getting back here. That's why I say there are no steps back in this process, because we can't just continue to move forward. We have to be able to strengthen those muscles, those practices, right? So when we end up finding ourselves struggling again, we practice, we find that we're able to get back here, and eventually we find that we're able to get there more quickly. And that is the process. And eventually, your automatic response, your automatic thought when something difficult is going on is not to go back to those false beliefs any longer, because your core beliefs have shifted. So, when you find yourself feeling like you're not making the progress that you think that you should be, when you feel like you've taken a step back or many steps back, when you hear somebody talk about this aha moment they had and how it shifted everything for them, remind yourself that everything is a process. And in regards to like aha moments, I do believe that people can have really profound moments when suddenly it just clicks and it really helps begin to shift things. But I want to be clear that even in those really profound aha moments, there's nothing magical happening. And it doesn't mean that you never go back to this. It's just a really profound understanding. It's a profound awareness. And that is huge, and that's significant, and that's great. I don't want to discount that. But if you're seeing that happen in other people, or people are talking about that, please don't take that to mean that something magical happened and they got it and then they never went back to this, because that isn't how it works. Aha moments are great, but they don't permanently on their own shift things, but they can be a huge leap forward. So I hope you found this helpful. For whatever reason, I came across that statement recently. Don't believe everything you think, and it's what made me do this video today. But again, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Share your thoughts, reflections, anything that you noticed coming up for you. And in particular, if you do recognize that you really kind of put a lot of pressure on yourself to get from here to here, that you should be there already, let me know that. But also please remember to practice self-compassion. Remind yourself, would you have those same expectations for somebody else? Some important things to keep in mind. Thanks so much for being here. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.